This is Misty with Healing Rosie, of course, here live with Dr. Michelle Sands. Hello,
Hey.
Michelle.
Hey, everybody.
Super excited for this Facebook Live because, as you guys might have heard, Michelle has an event coming up that she's going to tell us about, which is really, really awesome. And we've been having lots of combos here in the Healing Rosie group lately about menopause and perimenopause and all the fun stuff that comes along with menopause. And Dr. Michelle has been working with women around these issues for quite a while. And in fact, Michelle, I would love for you to do a 2-minute version of your story, because the fact that you as a woman so intimately relate to what we're experiencing and you had to kind of hack yourself and figure this out for yourself first is a real testament to what a woman who's really determined to take back her health can do if she's armed with the right information.
Yeah. So it's really near and dear to my heart, and not just for women in their 40s and 50s, but women of really all ages who are dealing with these quote unquote normal menopausal symptoms. When I was a child, I had a lot of health issues growing up. I always had tummy aches, I had acne. And then as I was kind of getting into my reproductive years, which started at 12 years old, I immediately had the most horrible cramping, really irregular periods, and just it was insane pain. So my mom took me to the doctor. They immediately put me on birth control pills at the age of 12. And I just had a really hard time growing up, and I was trying to manage my weight. I had an eating disorder as early as 13. I started really restricting food. And then I decided I was going to join the track team. So I ended up running a lot. I ran a lot. And I ended up getting a track scholarship to college, which ended up being a great thing. But in that first year, after the first season, I had my regular physical that they do for all the athletes. And I just kind of broke down in the office. I was telling them all my problems, that I was taking all these over-the-counter remedies for my stomach or for my joints, and something to sleep and something to wake up, and probably 15 Advil a day just to deal with my pain. And so they're like, well, we need to check you out. And so they agreed to run some tests, and they didn't find a lot as it really pertained to my gut issues or any of my skin issues or anything like that. But what they told me was that my ovaries were done, and that basically that if I wanted to have children, it wasn't in the cards for me. And that was kind of the diagnosis there. They didn't tell me at that time, but what it turned out to be was primary ovarian failure was what the diagnosis was at later doctors that I went to visit. And nobody really had any answers as to why this was happening, how this could happen to me. But basically at age 20, I was in menopause, right? And so I had all the symptoms. I was getting hot flashes, I had fatigue, I was depressed, I was starting to gain weight despite the fact that I was running 20 to 40 miles a week, 20 to 40 miles a week. That's a lot of running, but I would gain that what's typical, that menopause belly. And I was eating, it was the 90s, so I was eating low fat, the Diet Coke and the Snackwells, but there was no fat in them. So we've all been there. They're in our kind of age group. If it said fat free, it was healthy. But it wasn't until I kind of went down the route of really interviewing doctors, from everything from endocrinologists to gynecologists to ancient Chinese medical doctors to, people who are just holistic energy healers. Some people said that there was something I could do, and then other people said there was nothing I can do. So I was really hanging on to the something I could do people. And I was kind of venturing down those roads, and I ended up finding my way back into naturopathic medical school, because that was kind of where the route led me. I kept testing on myself and I couldn't get certain tests. So I wanted to be my own practitioner. And it turned out that my ovaries didn't really fail. They were just on break. They were just clocked out for a little while. And it was just because I've had, I didn't know I had celiac disease. I grew up in an Italian family in New York. We ate pizza, we ate pasta, we ate pastries. Bread was in it, and 9 types of carbs, all with gluten in them in every meal, pretty much. So once I discovered that, I took the gluten out. And then I also, uncovered autoimmune thyroid, parasites, heavy metal toxicity. So the list kind of went on and on, but all of these things, the toxicity plus the stress I was putting on my body, I had to stop running. I started taking up yoga, some weightlifting. And so the stress, the toxicity, the restricting fat, which I later learned was a building block of our hormones. You know, I was actually eating 0 fat. Like right now it's really popular to do keto, but it was like the opposite of keto, you know? So there's all those kind of perfect storm things that really, my body was just trying to like keep me alive. It was like, having a baby is not a priority. We need to keep you alive. And so that, like, coming through this whole journey, and then, you know, happy ending. I have a 3-year-old son now, Paxton, who was born naturally, no intervention. It was just healing my body. And once I got to that point, it took me about 5 years before I even wanted to try, because I still kind of believed that I was infertile and I didn't want to go through that whole emotional battle. So I kind of talked myself into, I don't need to have a kid. I'm just going to have a career and help other women to have their kids, basically. But we decided to try because things were starting to feel normal for me. And then, you know, as luck would have it, baby Paxton was born. And so it's just a testament that no matter what you're told by one practitioner or 5 practitioners or 10 practitioners, that if your body is telling you something else on the inside, like, keep searching. And that's really in our practice. We don't have all the answers at Glow. We have a lot of answers, but we have a network of doctors that we work with, and we find the answers. My patients teach me so much. Like, they come to me and I don't have an answer. I love researching, reaching out and finding what it is, because I believe the body wants to heal. And that is our state is supposed to be balanced. And so we just live in the world now where there's just so many unnatural things that are competing with our body's ability to maintain homeostasis, basically. And we just haven't evolved fast enough to keep up with all the new toxins and the new environmental things that are in the world. We will catch up. The human body will catch up, but we have to help it in this little time frame.
So I posted in our group that we were doing this with you, and a lot of women came out of the woodwork and said how much they loved you. One woman said, I completed her 21-day metabolic rehab and it was a game changer. I asked her, I was like, tell me more about your story. And she said, delicious food, no calorie counting. I lost over 10 pounds and have kept it off for 2 years. I have more energy and I learned about how food can make you feel better.
Oh, so, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really funny because it's like all real food. There's no like energy supplements. There's no weird things, but it's just like it's basically, I'll give you guys the secret. It's basically an elimination diet plus a liver detox combined with some stress reducing, really supportive nutrients that are food-based and some at-home practices like castor oil packs and meditation and gratitude. So it's not anything that's like anyone can't do at home, and it's great for families too. But we love to start people with that because it is a quick win out of the gate. And it really is a gateway drug to total healing.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of talk a little bit about what's happening in perimenopause. So most of the women in the community know at least snippets of my story. You know, I went through surgery at 35. They found an ovarian cyst on my left ovary, removed the ovary with the cyst. And of course I had that complication where they stitched up part of my small intestine, and then my body went into crisis. And by the time I was 38, I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure. This was after heavy metals were improperly drilled from my teeth and created a 45-pound weight gain. And, you know, everything just kind of cascades in the body. But I was hearing what a lot of women in our community are hearing is that, you know, they're experiencing all these symptoms. I had the brain fog. I was dealing with the weight issues, crazy fatigue. And I was told that everything was actually normal and what I was experiencing was normal and that my labs were normal, and basically implying that this is just what happens. And maybe we need to put you on antidepressants because, you know, aging is getting to you. And what we're doing here with not only the Healing Rosie community, but really the ancestral health community at large is creating a new context for what we're experiencing as women and talking about some of the things that we're encountering in modern life that are not aligned with our biology. So why don't you kind of give your perspective on why so many women are getting misdiagnosed during this time?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's the whole mission behind the Perimenopause Summit, because just like your story, it's very similar to my story as I grew older. Like at first I told you I was diagnosed at age 20 with the ovarian failure. They didn't call that menopause. They didn't call that perimenopause. It was just something that they couldn't explain. Later in my 30s, I was still dealing with the symptoms. And guess what? All of a sudden, those same symptoms, perimenopause, menopause. And so a lot of women like yourself, like so many women listening, like so many women we've worked with in our practice, they have these symptoms that are just bucketed into this is what happens when you get older. And it's so false. And so many women get misdiagnosed that actually have viral conditions like Epstein-Barr. They have autoimmunity. They have thyroid imbalances, even diabetes, metabolic syndrome, certain types of cancer. They're all getting lumped into, well, this is normal. And the symptoms are very common. Like a lot of women have these symptoms, but they're not normal. The normal symptoms of, well, let's just talk about what perimenopause is and what menopause is, right? So they kind of get interchanged and correctly so. They kind of are interchangeable in a way that how we think about the word menopause, we think of it as, oh, you're having the hot flashes, you're tired, you're gaining weight around your belly. We think of it as that, but that's actually perimenopause. Perimenopause is that time leading up to the end of your reproductive age. So when your periods stop, when your ovaries stop producing, your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, when they kind of shut down, that's menopause. And some people actually classify menopause as when you have your last period, and some people classify it as 1 year after your last period. But that's like, semantics. It's basically the end of your reproductive cycle. So however you want to put it, if you want to count your birthday as the day that you had your last period, it doesn't matter. But the perimenopause is actually the years leading up to that. So this could be 10 years, this could be 15 years, but it's when your hormones start to kind of fluctuate. And you can have times of high estrogen, and then you can have a swoosh of low estrogen. Same thing with progesterone and testosterone. And so this is that transitional period. And this is when the symptoms actually start to kind of magnify and come into being. But a lot of people don't realize that the only real normal symptoms, expected symptoms of this change should be irregular periods. So you may have a longer cycle or a shorter cycle. You might skip a period. You may have a heavier flow or a lighter flow. And that is normal during these years leading up to the end of your reproductive cycle. So that's one symptom, irregular cycles. Second symptom is basically it's 2 and 3, hot flashes and night sweats. Those are the only two symptoms because those are also associated with that rise and fall of the estrogen. It's completely normal. And it's actually your body's way of cooling you down as the thermostat kind of changes. And that is completely normal. However, it shouldn't be to the point where you have to cancel appointments. You shouldn't be soaked in your bed. They should be a mild but noticeable hot flash that should come and go. And you should be like, oh, I just had a hot flash, or is it getting hot in here? But you shouldn't be soaked in sweat. A lot of women come to me and they're sleeping in a separate bed from their husband because he doesn't want to swim at night. That is not normal. That's extreme. It's like a headache versus a migraine. You have a little headache because had a rough day, you didn't get enough sleep, you're dehydrated. That's a headache. But a migraine, that's something that's not normal. But speaking of that, a lot of women in perimenopause get headaches and migraines. They lose their libido. They gain weight around their midsection or everywhere even. You just start gaining weight. And you're eating, you're exercising just as you always have. Now you're gaining weight. Insulin resistance, insomnia, fatigue all the time, depression, anxiety, even inability to be in social circumstances is something that we see a lot too. You become very antisocial, and it's lack of confidence with the testosterone dropping. So there's so many symptoms, even skin conditions we're seeing just across the board, but no matter what it is, it's getting lumped into that perimenopause, and it really shouldn't. So if you have symptoms other than that, it's likely a kind of a domino effect. So a lot of times women will have one symptom like difficulty sleeping, and then that will actually have a snowball effect into a bunch of other symptoms like depression, anxiety, weight gain, insulin resistance, because you're not sleeping. And so you have to get to the root cause of why you're not sleeping, and then those symptoms kind of go away. But unfortunately, our hormones, they're not isolated in a bubble. So your hormones affect everything else in your environment, and everything in your environment affects your hormones.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I would love for you to address, because I see it in our group, I see it in my private conversations with women too, is this idea of libido. And I want to talk about it from a purely scientific perspective, because there's many women who obviously notice that their libido is changing as they get older and they're really disinterested in sex. And while there's a part of them that might wish that were different, it's often not regarded as something that is like almost a sound the alarm. Our bodies are in crisis, Many women consider their libido to be optional. If you can enjoy a great sexual relationship, that's kind of a nice cherry on top of the cupcake of life, when we know that from the perspective of overall health, your sexual response, the orgasmic response, and all of those things have really serious benefits to our health. I would love for you just to talk about that so that women understand why this is such an important area and why they should be concerned about their own libido as they're going through perimenopause.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question, because there's a lot of women, and I was actually in this category. I didn't even realize that we were supposed to enjoy sex, because remember, I had that ovarian failure from such a young age 20. I really wasn't even sexually active yet. So by the time I did become sexually active, there was nothing in it for me. So I had no idea that I was supposed to have an orgasm. I was supposed to feel good. I was supposed to be in the mood. I was acting, that was like the role that I played for my partner. And there's so many women in this boat for either psychological reasons, for physical reasons. There's a combination of the two. So some women have had hormone imbalances all of their life and been put on the birth control pill to artificially balance their hormones. The hormones in birth control pills are not hormones at all. They're actually endocrine disruptors. So they just mimic hormones and they make your cycle normal, but nothing else is normal. So that's one big reason that we see women aren't getting that sexual satisfaction. They've never had it, so they don't know what they're missing. The other reason is stress and like psychological reasons, because women are different than men. Men, they don't really need the buildup. Men are just ready to go. They're like, they see an image, they see you, they see a silhouette of you in the shower, and they're like, boom, I'm in the mood. Women require they require a download of their stressful days. So they require to kind of forget their day, maybe talk about their day, be held, be caressed, get a little massage, and that kind of turns on the mood. If you just go because your husband or your spouse or significant other, gender neutral here, so whether you're with a man or a woman, you can't just go per women. It just doesn't work most of the time. There might be some days where you're already in the mood because you're thinking about something, or you had a real easy day, or you were at the spa. That's different. Most of us have responsibilities at our job, or we're running around, we're thinking about things and then we get home and boom, and then we think we're not in the mood, but we have to invite our significant other to get us in the mood. So that it might take 10, 20, 30 minutes, even more, to get in that mood, and we're missing that window a lot of times. Mm-hmm. So that's one big area that I think people can really work on. And actually on the summit that's coming up, we interviewed Susan Bratton, who is an expert in this area, and she actually really laid it out. And that's going to be a great one to watch, because this is what she does. She's the Dear Abby of sex. So it's pretty awesome. But yeah, that's definitely it. But then there's also, as we age, the tissue gets thinner in our vaginal wall, and it can be more painful. We can have less lubricant. So there's a lot of great therapies now that can really revitalize our lady bits. There's the O shot, which basically, it sounds scary, but they take your own blood and they remove some of the cells. So it's platelet-rich plasma, and they inject it into your clitoris basically, and it just you're 20 again. Have you had it?
No, but I've heard.
I haven't had it either, but I will get it that time comes. And then there's another one that's basically basically they're shooting a laser. It's like a little laser dildo that goes up your your private parts, and basically it like firms up. It's kind of like getting, like you get a facial, you know, they kind of like rub your, you get a little bit of braided on your skin and it grows back like more beautiful and fuller and stronger. That's what they're doing inside your vagina. So like, you're like, you know, you have that sensitivity and you have that, just that feeling, and it actually doesn't change like the look. So you're not going to like physically look different, but it changes the experience. So those are a couple of things. And then lubrication. You know, we do, as our hormones change, we do have less lubrication. So using a natural lubricant can make a world of difference. We don't want to have pain when we have sex, and that's totally okay. But taking that time, that 20, 30 minutes to get yourself in the mood, you'd be surprised. I have a lot of women who that was their complaint. It's like, you know, I'm dry as a desert. And, you know, it's like, we have to always wait to get the lube out, and it's a pain in the butt and it's toxic. So I don't want to use it. I don't want to have coconut oil next to my bed. Like, what do I do? And like, just try, enroll your husband in taking some time with you, you know, massaging your hair, rubbing your neck. Like, don't go for the prize, like go for like, just like a foot rub, and then let that lead to something else. And it's a magic how all of a sudden that turns the fountain back on.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I think would be really helpful is, why don't you just tell women what the health benefits are of a good sexual response, you know? Like,
well, yeah.
So in their life that they don't even know they're missing.
Yeah, there's studies across the board around longevity. So people who engage in regular sex live longer. Well, of course, quality of life and enjoyment, but it's like it's cardiovascular. Even the semen as it enters, if you're not using protection, if you're beyond the pregnancy age, there's actually benefits to that for actually conditioning the vaginal walls and absorbing nutrients in that manner. But there's like, if you think of any possible benefit, sex is like one of the reasons why. It's one of the things that can get you there. So relieving depression, improving cardiovascular health, reducing stress. So, you know, we all talk about how stressful our lives are, and that human connection, that oxytocin's a hormone that basically is used to relax. It's relaxing, it's your connection hormone, but actually is being used now in weight loss. It's also being used in Alzheimer's studies, oxytocin as a therapy. But you create more oxytocin when you're having that sexual experience than anything else. So that is pretty amazing. Gosh, it's anti-inflammatory. Your body is just, you're having this like out of body experience if you're doing it right. Like if you're actually getting to the orgasm. So you're not, when you're in the act and you're actually enjoying it and you're reaching that orgasm, you're not thinking about your bills and you're not thinking about before. So you're actually getting your body into like the ultimate like Zen experience, and you're actually reducing inflammation that way because you're in that parasympathetic state. You're turning on that rest and relaxation, that repair response. And the more you can do that, the better you're going to heal from pretty much anything there. I mean, even if you have a headache, it's so funny because the headache is often like the classic excuse, like, oh, not tonight, honey, I have a headache. But the studies actually show that having sex when you have a headache will take your headache away. So that excuse is out.
Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah.
I've got some questions here from the community, and I want to dive in because we've got about 15 more minutes here. But there's a lot of women that are struggling right now, and this actually comes up a lot. And I would love to get your perspective on fibroids. So women are dealing with fibroids in the uterus. They're obviously dealing with cysts and tumors on ovaries. What do we need to do if we're one of the women who are getting diagnosed with some kind of fibroid or tumor around our reproductive organs as we go through perimenopause?
So generally speaking, a fibroid or a cyst is actually your body's way of isolating something that's potentially toxic or potentially dangerous and keeping it away from everything else. So it's like forming this barrier around it. So that's your body's innate healing ability. So that's the good thing. because of the format that we are, I always do have to say, check with your doctor, get it checked out, make sure. But the thing is, don't immediately like think that you're dying. Don't immediately like start getting stressed out, because one, that's going to create more inflammation if you start stressing out about something that is probably not a big deal. Most fibroids, most cysts are benign. They're not cancerous. It could happen, so definitely get it checked out. But castor oil packs, I don't know if you guys talk about castor oil packs at all. Castor oil packs are a way to shrink fibroids and to reduce cysts that are non-cancerous. So that's something that we use in our practice. It's something we teach in that 21-day program you talked about earlier. And so just applying it to your abdomen really does help. Yeah, so that's kind of like a sticky subject, just because I don't want to give medical advice in this format. But the biggest thing I could say is that they are pretty common, and most of the time they're not a problem, and they can shrink. They will shrink on their own when we do detox and we get to the root of what's causing the toxicity in our body. It could be that we're being exposed to something we don't know about. It could be mold in our environment. It could be toxins in our water and in our air. So really looking for, it's like the sign of there's something going on in your life. And so trying to remove toxins and go through a great cellular type detox. We love Dr. Pompa and his programs, and we do something similar in our practice as well. So doing like really detoxing your body, but first, like I know you're going, Misty, down to get some of your dental work done down at one of the biological dentists. So even stuff like that, really looking like, where is my source of toxicity? Where is my source of even viral infections? It can be a combination of, parasites, viruses, toxicity of some sort, and it's just your body's way of telling you there's something in there it's trying to trap.
Yeah, what's happening a lot in our community, and there's been a lot of posts about this, is that doctors are finding fibroids in women, and they're telling them that they need to have hysterectomies. Like the solution to a fibroid is a hysterectomy. So it's the idea, it's a nice idea to say, oh, go talk to your doctor, but that's what doctors are telling women.
Yeah.
So how can we kind of open up another path here where, like, let's share some other paths and other things that women could explore besides hysterectomies to see if that might help. They can talk to their doctor about these other paths, that might really help if that's their situation.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to like individually either freeze off or cut off the circulation to a fibroid, where they basically, if you think about like putting a rubber band around something and squeezing off the circulation, and then it actually dies off. So depending on how big the fibroid is, there's actually like cryotherapies to freeze them, to shrink them. So there's a lot of different ways to shrink these fibroids and get them gone. Then absolutely, anytime a doctor wants to remove a body part, get 10 different opinions from 10 different doctors. We see gallbladders, uteruses, and thyroids getting removed unnecessarily.
Your elective body parts. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not, there's no like wasted body parts. Like whether you believe in God or the universe, we were not created like by mistake. Everything has a purpose, and we cannot, unfortunately, the problem with a lot of conventional medical doctors is if they don't know an answer, they're just, let's remove it. Let's oh, that's the answer. It's like, if you have God, I don't want to go to a doctor with really bad headaches. Is he going to chop my head off? Like what's, you just don't do that. And it's that you have to always like think about what is causing this. Do you have fibroids in your uterus because your uterus is just defective? No, there's something going on that's causing those to be deposited and growing there. Your uterus is not broken. There's a root cause, and always, anytime a doctor wants to either put you on a medication or even a supplement for that matter, without addressing healing, without a healing plan in place, walk the other way. It's not good medicine. And there are some natural or functional doctors that will just replace drugs and surgery with supplements and therapies. But if they're not actually like seeking a cause and seeking a plan to heal, then that's what you really want. So whether it's removing an organ or anything else, there has to be identifying the cause, like what caused this, what might have caused this, what series of things could have caused this, because it's usually not just one thing. But if they can't tell you that, and they're not willing to investigate that, they're not practicing medicine. They're practicing, I don't know.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Butchery.
So the castor oil thing has come up in our community before. Why don't you just give us an idea of what that particular therapy or treatment path looks like?
Yeah, so it's a ancient therapy that's been around thousands and thousands of years. It's something that we use in naturopathic medicine, but also in Ayurvedic medicine and all kinds of Eastern therapies. So all it involves is using a really pure castor oil. And usually you'll put that on some type of a organic wool cloth. You'll soak the cloth and you'll apply it. In this case, we're talking about over the ovaries or on the abdomen. We use it a lot for liver detox as well, over the abdomen. So you can kind of drape it over, wrap it up, like wrap it with you can wrap it with like an ace bandage, or like a wrap. Some people have you wrap it with plastic wrap. We don't really like to use plastic, but if you have cloth underneath and the plastic on top, that's okay, as long as it's not touching your skin. And then you just lay down with it for about 45 minutes to 2 hours, depending on like how much you're looking to detox. And you can do that every night. And the studies have shown that it helps to detox, it helps the body regenerate, and it has been shown to shrink fibroids. So it's definitely a very non-invasive at-home therapy. It's very inexpensive to do. And so there's a brand called Heritage that we usually recommend that makes a really pure castor oil, and they actually have a whole kit. So it comes with a little cloth and the instructions and the pure castor oil. And you know, it's very relaxing and therapeutic. And we're talking about for fibroids and for liver here, but you can actually, if you have an injury, we've done it for athletes on their elbows, put the castor pack on their knee, and it actually does help the healing process as well.
Awesome. All right, I have a question here from Pippa. She says, what are your suggestions for hot sweats at night and insomnia?
Okay, so there are some supplements be helpful, and sometimes they help some people and some help others. So black cohosh is a popular one. It's a herbal remedy that can help with night sweats. Also, there's some others that can be helpful. Vitex, even though it's more of a hormone balancing herb, that's been helpful in our practice a lot. And then also doing things like evening primrose oil, flax seeds. For instance, insomnia, I would actually look at your genetics if possible. If not, try some melatonin or passion flower extract. For some people, respond really well to melatonin. And melatonin, we often think of it as a sleep hormone, which it is, but it's also a really powerful anti-aging hormone and antioxidant. So if you're dealing with free radical stress or anything like that, inflammation, melatonin is going to do double duty there. So that can be helpful as well, because you really need to get your sleep if you're going to heal and for your hormones to be balanced. So but don't try all those things I said just there all at once. Try one thing at a time and see how you respond. We also found that seed cycling, you can actually Google seed cycling, and it's just using different seeds at different times in a month to help to kind of modulate and balance your hormones. And it's usually recommended for reproductive age women, but it's actually pretty effective past menopause as well.
Awesome. Okay. Naomi said, how do I avoid hair loss and weight gain as I'm going through perimenopause?
So that's a good question. So make sure that you have all your nutrients. So nutrient deficiencies are first step. So we always start with the foundations, right? Because you don't want to put nitrous oxide into a clunker automobile. So you want to start with make sure that you're drinking your water, eating whole real food, all of those things. But above that, hair loss is really common with thyroid imbalances. So you want to check your thyroid. It's also common with imbalances between zinc and copper. So checking those levels as well. We see a lot of women with either copper toxicity or low copper causing hair loss as well. So that's one thing that often doesn't get talked about. And on our summit, we have Anne-Louise Gittleman, who talks entirely on that topic. So that's a great thing to talk about there. So the hair loss, the insomnia, I would definitely look at grains, because some people have a genetic variant that makes them unable to, it inhibits the actual process of glutamic acid converting to GABA basically in the brain. So your GABA is your relaxation hormone. So there's a big percentage of the population that has this variant in their genes that will make grains cause anxiety and insomnia. So removing grains and high glutamic acid containing foods for at least like a 30-day trial, that might really change your life.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm super excited for everyone to sign up for your summit. I'm about to drop the link in so you guys can go get registered for the Perimenopause Summit with Dr. Michelle Sands. I have an interview on there talking about the things that women need to do to really advocate for themselves. You guys know how passionate I am about that subject. And she has an incredible lineup of some of the very top experts in our space that are all coming together to support us as we're going through the change of life that for many of us begins as early as our late 20s, but definitely into our 30s, 40s, and even 50s. So I'm very grateful that you took the time to join us today, Michelle, and answer these questions, and especially the castor oil question for fibroids. That's been coming up so much. I'm really glad we could get some clarity on that for you guys. And looking forward to seeing you all participate in the summit too. So
awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, your interview is just phenomenal. And I think it's going to inspire so many women, and hopefully we get more women in this community, because this community is off the hook. Like I go do a lot of Facebook Lives, and I'm in a lot of communities, and you guys are not only just like so supportive of each other, but you're positive and you're smart. You're really doing your research, and you're really taking control of your health. And that is, I love seeing that. So
yeah, I love the women in this community. I mean, I like to think that I'm doing my part to hold space, but man, there's some people that just blow me away with what they know and how generous they are. And I think it's just kind of, it represents to me the epitome of what women are in the world. You know, we're the people that create community, and we love and support and nurture everyone in our lives. And it's so special that we're coming together in this community to provide all the very best attributes of what it means to be a woman, to lift each other up. So yeah, thank you so much for participating. I tag you all the time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I try to get in there when I can, but you guys can always like tag me or reach out or message me if you need anything, because it is really what drives me in the morning when I wake up. It's helping people. And I get just so much joy from seeing people, like, you know, actually, if I do help you and you just let me know how it changed your life, that's all the payback I need. I love seeing the results that women are getting. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Misty. You've really created an amazing thing here.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, ladies. Drop any extra comments and we'll see if Michelle can come in and answer a couple questions, and we'll see all of you on the summit.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.